In this video, basically what I want to do is I'd like to kind of give a very brief summary of, and this won't do justice to all the nuances of Plato's political philosophy, but I want to just give a summary of just that. And it's mostly from the Republic. Now, in the past few months, I had made a video for each book of the Republic, explaining what is going on in each book, and I have that in a playlist called Plato's Philosophy. And in this video, I just kind of want to give a summary of the political part, because in that book, you have a philosophy where he describes justice and gives you, what a state or a city should be like. He gives you a political philosophy, on ethics, on metaphysics, on epistemology, and more than that as well. And in this video, I want to just kind of give a brief go over what his political philosophy consists in. And the other two dialogues that are strictly political would be the Laws and the Statesman, which I would like to go over at some point in the distant future, because there are other books, there are other dialogues of Plato that I want to get to, that like the Phaedrus and stuff that I want to reread and do on this channel. In the Republic, what happens is Socrates gets asked the question of what justice is, and that's the whole theme. That sets the whole theme for the whole dialogue. It's about what justice is, and through explaining that, he has a long explanation. Now, each book of that dialogue is quite long. But it's something that you should read if you have any interest in philosophy at all. It's just something that's really awesome. It's really awesome to read, and it's really awesome to think about this, especially because this is a philosophy which has, in one kind of theory, I guess if you want to call it that, many different takes on many different kinds of philosophy. Like I said, ethics, metaphysics, epistemology, political philosophy, etc. So Plato's political philosophy, and I think there's some of it in the Crito as well, but all of his dialogues can be argued to have some kind of political implication. We have this theme of justice, and in political philosophy itself, what is being done is we're trying to to clarify what things mean, and that's really what we're doing in really any kind of philosophy. We're making distinctions and figuring out what things are. Like, for instance, that's really that is what is done in epistemology, metaphysics, or really any kind of philosophy. But in political philosophy, we want to figure out what freedom is, what justice is, and that's what is done in Plato's Republic. Is we're trying to figure out what justice is, and Socrates gives an explanation of that. So we want to clarify all these things. We want to clarify what it means for a government to serve the people, and we want to clarify all these things. And another thing that we want to do in political philosophy is we want to figure out what the best kind of government is. That's kind of a vague thing, but we want to figure out what the best government is, given what is desired. And in lots of political philosophy, we have the aim of trying to create a government that create a government that serves the people, and it is for the good of the overall whole, rather than for a certain person, and justice. In the first book, Thrasymachus and Socrates and like these people give different ideas of what they think justice is, and Socrates gives an idea of justice on two levels, on the personal and the citywide level, and they both have to be the same thing to be the best person or to be the best city. And I go more in depth in this. You can look at it anywhere. I'm not saying you should go look at my videos if you don't want to, but there's various other resources that you can look at to help you. But he also talks about different kinds of parts of the soul and how that works for the whole thing, and it's the parts of the city, like the people. There are people of the city who serve different means. There's various different things, but there's guardians who serve to protect, and there's a theory of education and knowledge in this as to how we have to train the guardians, who can become we have auxiliaries and we have guardians, and from those we pick the Philosopher King as to how they align themselves with the forms, and justice for Plato is how we're going to build. Figuring out what this is from what we're going to build, like political order and political order, basically, and how we're going to have a good society, and how we're going to have a government which is going to lead towards the aim of the whole, or the aim of some other aim based on what is desired. But Socrates defines justice as to be what Socrates defines justice to be what can be built upon in moving towards the good of the whole, and that's the government that Plato and Socrates wants is a government that will do things for the good of everybody and not for the good of just one thing. And we have in the analogy of the cave and the divided line, which I go into pretty good. There's probably other resources which go into it more in depth than I really ever have, but we have the Philosopher Kings. The Philosopher Kings are kings because they align themselves with the forms. They align themselves with the form of the good and move towards true knowledge in order to go back into the cave and rule everyone in the cave. And that's how because mostly everybody is in the cave, and the Philosopher King are in the guardians are given education so that they may align themselves with the forms and have knowledge of the forms to have a true knowledge, and the ones who do the best, the one who does that the best will be the Philosopher King, and there's a bigger, more complex selection process of this Philosopher King, but it's about educating these people to align themselves with the forms, and that's the metaphysics part of it, is the forms. And the Philosopher King is supposed to have aligned himself with the forms in order to have a true knowledge beyond, beyond what anybody else has. Because if you recall, in the cave, the people who are bound at the bottom, they're facing forward. All they see is the statue or the shadows from on top of the statues and stuff that the people up there are trying to make the people down there think is a certain reality. That's really all I know down there. People who are bound and they're forced to face one direction. They're forced to face the wall where the shadows are cast, and the shadows are really all they know. So that's like a lower form of knowledge. And the divided line kind of also shows you a similar model. But the political thing is for Plato and Socrates. Plato's the one who's writing this, but Socrates is the one who's speaking all this. The aim with justice and defining it on the personal and the citywide level, the aim is to create a government, create a society that will be made to act based upon what will get us to act based upon based upon the good of the whole, based on the good of the whole city and everybody in it. And the reason Socrates creates such a strict things about selecting people for each role, and justice really is that each person does his, a part of justice anyway, is that each person does his role. He does his role, because that's what the good of everyone is. That's and a part of this whole thing, this roles of everybody that Socrates lays out is not entirely supposed to be looked at as for its actual usage, but it's supposed to be looked at as to. It can be, and if we're going to think about it for a practical, actual usage, then that's going to have difficulty. But the thought process of it is what really matters. Justice is that each part it plays its role. It does what it's named to do. And if everyone does their role, then it will work like a cohesive. It will work like a cohesive machine, basically, and the good of everyone will be worked towards, and everyone will be benefited from it. In the later books, he talks about the deterioration, and it goes from his actual best idea of it to democracy, to oligarchy, excuse me, to democracy, and then finally to tyranny. Because as you go from democracy to oligarchy to democracy to tyranny, you deteriorate because the wants of the individuals individuals or a certain person becomes more of the goal rather than the good of the whole. It becomes more of a good of a certain defined set of people or just one person. And there's a couple different books where that goes more in depth. I think it's maybe book 9 or something like that, and they have more in depth this discussion on that. But it's all about figuring out what these things mean, first of all, and creating a model which would be for the good of everybody and for the good of the whole city or the personal level. But like I said, this isn't just about the whole city. It's also on the personal level, because there's different parts of the soul, and the soul each part has to work together in order to in order for the soul to be benefited as a whole, and that's really what his thing is. That's a very brief explanation. Now there are, I could talk about this for a while. I would like to at some point go into the laws and the statesmen, and go more in depth into this and do a better analysis of this. but I think this is the bare bones model of what he's doing, what the political philosophy of Plato is, given the Republic.